Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Mission Matters. My name is Adam Torres, and if you'd like to apply to be a guest in the show, just head on over to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to apply. All right, today I have Jennifer Gressman on the line, and she's CEO of Site Impact. Jen, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Adam.
All right, so we're going to talk about one of my favorite topics. We're going to talk about targeting today, the gap between your targeting and your conversion data. Great topic. But before we get into that, maybe give us a little bit about your background and really how you got into this field.
Sure. So thank you so much for having me. I started, quite a few years ago in traditional media, TV, radio, things like that, made the switch to digital about 20 years ago. And they kind of, as they say, kind of the rest is history. But things I realized quite quickly was I love data, I love analytics, I love marketing. So fast forward a lot of years later, I feel like I'm kind of sitting in a sweet spot, and just helping drive this business forward.
So when you say you got into digital, go a little bit further with that. Like what side of digital? Like what interested you and what kept you in the field?
Sure. So again, 20 plus years ago, I didn't realize how much the data actually impacted the marketing decisions we were making, right? And candidly, I don't think we had all of those insights. So I think it was, at that point in time, it was kind of an aim, ready, fire situation, right? And you were kind of making tweaks on the fly. And now I think you fast forward between the amount of data we have at our fingertips, the tools that we have available to us and all of that, like you're able to get really, really, really curated and really hone in on the people that you want to market to. So I think for me, it's always just been about leveraging the data, right message, right audience, right time in their buying journey,
And what do you specialize in present day? Maybe give us a little bit of the background on Site Impact as well. So when you talk about targeting, like what channels?
Absolutely. So Site Impact is our core product is an email first product, right? So we deploy emails to a curated audience that we are actually targeting, leveraging our identity graph. So we have an internal identity graph of roughly 233 million U.S.-based consumers. We're able to target that audience by anything from age, geo, gender, hobbies, and levels of interest. So we deploy email to those users who our clients are identifying. And then based on how that email is engaging, how it opens, how it clicks, we layer in additional media strategies to that same target audience.
And looking at what type of businesses do you work with?
So the vast majority of our clients we're really in the B2B space. So we're working with media companies, agencies, and resellers who are then working with those end advertisers that we're all kind of very familiar with. But again, so we're very much in the local space because our identity graph does allow us to get hyper-targeted and hyper-local. So targeting, a zip code radius, right, or a radius of a zip code, and then we can obviously expand to the national level. But again, with that hyper-targeted ability, it allows us to really serve both the local advertisers, SMBs, and national brands.
Do you find that when teams go into campaigns, like they know who they want to target, but maybe the data doesn't always align?
I do. I think oftentimes, we have this kind of idea of who we want to target, but sometimes that tends to be really the aspirational version of the customer, right? So it's not necessarily...
Can you give me an example of that? Give me an example of that. Like, what does that mean?
Yes. So I think sometimes it's not always, I think it's sometimes who we want to be buying the product, but not necessarily who always does, right?
Oh, so I get it. I love this conversation with my team. They're like, we want to target this market, this. And I'm like, no, look at our website. You know who our audience is. You could see them. Like, it's obvious. Like, who's been on the show? Who's doing this? Who's that? I'm like, sure, maybe I throw this out to my team. Oh, they're not going to hear this episode. It's okay. So I'll talk a little smart. I always tell them, I'm like, maybe you would like to target this younger audience, but come on, I wear a red tie and a suit, 6,000 plus interviews. Red ties and suits aren't in vogue with the youngest of young audience. Sorry, there might be one or two oddballs that are going to now reply to this. Hey, I like it. No,
no, but 100%, and that's where you consumer. Exactly, and that's oftentimes where you see the gap, right? The data doesn't line up with who's actually converting, right? That's that aspirational pie in the sky. Well, this is who I want to be our ideal customer, but truth be told, that's not who it is, right? So you have that misalignment there, and then strategy is built around this quote unquote ideal customer, but the performance is actually driven by a different audience instead, right? So to me, it's kind of twofold, right? So it's number one, we have to adjust who we're targeting beyond just that narrative of who we want it to be. But then also I think that a lot of times it's how we're then targeting those people, right? So, if you go to various platforms, you're getting fragmentation across those platforms as well.
Yeah.
Right? So let's say for the sake of argument, you do find the people who are the red tie is going to resonate with, right?
Yeah.
So even if you do understand who your real buyer is, every platform, search, social, programmatic, and so on, is building its own version of that person. Right? So you think you're targeting the same audience everywhere, but you're really not, because you've got multiple interpretations on each platform of that same audience, right? So I think in that case, you've got two things going on. You have aspirational versus actual, right? And you've got this consistency issue across platforms as well.
Explain the consistency side and like how that can work. I know you mentioned that it's pushing you a different audience basically, but explain like how, just some best practices and like even just the thought process around that consistency.
Sure. So again, if I go to a search platform, a social platform, or programmatic platform for the sake of argument, right, I'm beholden to the data they have within their UI, the algorithms that they're running to say who the person who's going to resonate with the podcaster with the red tie, right? And again, while I may be getting similar audiences, I'm most certainly not getting the same audience. So that's where actually being able to run what, a true omni-channel campaign comes into play, where I can take that same data set from platform to platform and identify them, because now I'm saying, okay, these are the people that I want to target cross-platform, regardless of whether or not you would have put them in your model for that audience. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And also the interactions that the individuals have on one platform versus another. The same person could be targeted for different things.
100%.
Maybe they don't listen to business content on Facebook, so they're not going to resonate with you there.
Correct. So Facebook wouldn't even put them into that audience that you know them to be in. But to your point, because of the interaction in a particular platform, they may fall outside of that. Of that demographic.
They may go there just to watch for anime or some other group or whatever. Who knows?
Exactly.
I'm talking about myself right now, by the way, Jen. So
no worries. But I think
business ads on Facebook. Go ahead.
Yeah, there you go. I think truth, and again, not to sound kind of corny, but I think the marketers who are getting it right, they start with who's actually buying, not who they wish was buying, and then they make sure that they're finding the same audiences consistently across the channel, right? So I think that's kind of in a very succinct way of saying it. It's identifying who, not who you want it to be, but it's who, and then it's making sure that you can get those who on every platform.
Is that where you think people waste the most money? Like in that with those two that you mentioned, or is there anything else that kind of plays into that mix?
Well, I definitely think that's a huge piece of it. I think that you've got two big ones, and a lot of the teams recognize one of them, right? So the first one is what we're talking about, right? It's spending on the wrong people, right? That's really the easy one. It's inefficient. It's easy to spot. But I think the other piece is it's almost a wasted opportunity, or we like to call them quote unquote chances internally, right? So it's the wasted chances. So if your targeting is off, not only are you spending money and you have ad spoilage and you have spoilage on spending money on the wrong people, but there's also that opportunity cost of the people that you're not marketing to, the people who would have converted, who would have actually driven revenue there, right? Since budget is finite, right? Or I should say most people's budget are finite. If I wasted money here, but my goodness, what if I had actually spent it over here? So it's that twofold kind of waste going on.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is I think there's, it's duplication across channels, right? So again, kind of what we're talking about, you're paying multiple platforms and you go to find your audience. But again, because each one is working off of its own model, sure, you end up with overlap, but you also end up with gap and no real control over frequency and sequencing and things like that.
And so, where should marketers be paying closer attention to? Like, it should be the beginning of the campaign setup, yeah? Or I think, where should they?
Well, in my mind, it really is. It's this continuous loop, right? Because to me, and the way I kind of speak to my teams is it's look at the conversion data. So obviously, at the onset of a new product or new product launch, go-to-market strategy, you don't have that kind of insight into the conversion data. But once you start to kind of put all of that together, like in my mind, that's your starting point. Has my customer changed? Because here's who I've always had success with. Let me market to those people. Sure, I can go beyond that. I can do lookalike audiences beyond that. I can, look for audience extension, but like that should be my core. And so I think sometimes, we start with, again, this pie in the sky of who we want it to be, but really I kind of urge my team to let's be rooted in what's actually working and who's actually converting. Like, let's root ourselves in the data.
Yeah. And it seems like that'd be the most efficient spend, right? Like, just period.
I mean, one would think, right? That again, and obviously your customer base is going to change over time. Your customer base will change as you launch new products and change your products. But still, at the end of the day, if we focus on the conversion data and then we continue to iterate our campaigns based on how that conversion data has changed, I mean, I think that's really the key there. Again, I know it sounds so easy just to like, okay, look at your conversion data and go launch a campaign. That's not always quite that easy, but I think those are the pieces that kind of root you in what is and isn't working.
Talk about the benefit of the channel that Site Impact uses, like email and outreach. Like, talk about that a bit and why you found that so effective.
Sure. Well, again, if you can't tell by now in the last handful of minutes, I tend to be super reliant on data. So not only do I want to use
just a tad,
just a wee bit. So not only do I want to look at who's converting, right, and use that to make informed decisions. But I also say, okay, I have 233 million U.S.-based consumers where I can get down to, these hyper-targeted levels and say, okay, these are the people I want to be targeting. So again, I've gotten out of this fragmentation of data, right? If I take that same audience that I market to in these channels and then also market to cross-device marketing, I bypass some of that fragmentation because I'm no longer reliant on the platform to tell me who is my target. I'm actually bringing that target audience with me, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Jen, this has been a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed having you on and talking about targeting and also just different ways to be efficient with your budget. Hey,
Absolutely.
The opportunity cost factor, I like that you brought that up. The opportunity cost of not targeting correctly is that you're missing the people that would have bought. So I like that angle.
Exactly.
Sounds obvious, but you don't always hear it said that way. I love it. Jennifer, if somebody's listening or watching this and if they want to follow up, they want to learn more about your work at Site Impact, last question, two-part question. What types of businesses or companies are usually the best fit to work with you and your team, number one, and how do they connect?
Fantastic. Well, the companies that are, best suited for Site Impact is really anyone who's looking to, as we say here, find, get, and keep their next customer. But where can they find us? They can find us online at siteimpact.com, on social media, on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn, Site Impact Official.
Fantastic. For everybody listening, just so you know, we'll definitely put some links in the show notes so you can just click on the links and head right on over. And speaking of the audience, if this is your first time with Mission Matters and you haven't done it yet, hit that subscribe or follow button. This is a daily show. You heard me right, daily. Each and every day we're bringing you new content, new ideas, and hopefully new inspiration to help you along the way in your journey as well. So hit that subscribe or follow button. And Jennifer, thanks again for coming on.
Thanks for having me.